Hello and thanks for joining us. Coming up on today's show. 40 years after her death, the life and career of the Greek opera singer Maria Callas goes on show at Paris's new concert hall on the River Seine. The Invisible Man, Chinese artist Liu Bolin, brings his disappearing act to Paris. And coming in from the cold, we visit Berlin's new graffiti museum. We're starting at the first exhibition at Paris's new multi-million-euro cultural centre on the River Seine. The life and career of the Greek opera singer Maria Callas is on show at La Seine Musicale 40 years after her death. Alex Jennings reports.
Worldwide acclaim and front-page news, Maria Callas achieved stardom on an unprecedented level.
I'm not an idol, I'm a human.
But who was the real Maria Callas? And was the diva more of an actress than she was a singer? Emotion in her voice, a face wrought with expression. This is Maria Callas, the first opera singer of the 20th century to interpret her role with the intensity of an actress, as tragic as Tosca and as playful as Rosina in The Barber of Seville, disguising herself in an alternative persona, vital for an artist who struggled to feel at home in her own skin. Now, a more personal version of Callas will be revealed to the world by curators like this one at the Seine Musicale. He believes the singer's talent for acting was unrivaled.
She revolutionized her art. With her acting, she breathed new life into tragedy as a style of opera.
Maria Callas appeared in the 1969 film Medea. Her dream of breaking into the world of cinema was finally a reality.
If people consider me a good actress, that's already enough for me.
Callas lives on in cinema today, in the romantic comedies, in the love triangles. And though her own life was cut short, her smile and her talent are immortal.
Almost 100 years since his death, the French painter Claude Monet is a household name. His water lilies appear on coffee mugs, posters and coasters around the world. What few people know is that Monet was also a major art collector. His never-seen-before collection is now on show at the Marmottan Museum in Paris. Claire Rush takes a closer look.
This caricature is the first known portrait of Claude Monet. When he arrives in Paris in 1859, he poses for his artist friends, who offer him paintings in return. And so his collection is born, thanks to these gifts.
It's very moving because we discover a Monet that we don't know. A young Monet, just barely 20 years old, a dandy. We discover him through these paintings and drawings that he took great care of throughout his life.
The beard appears soon after in this painting by Carolus Duran. Renoir decides to add a pipe. Then comes the period of exchanges. To grow his collection, Monet swaps and trades. He gifted this painting to his friend Rodin in return for this burnished bronze. Rodin also gave him this sculpture. When the painter Pissarro borrowed money from him to buy this house, he asked to be reimbursed with this painting, already valuable. After 1890, Monet, now rich, frequents auction houses incognito to buy masterpieces. In his home in Giverny, he shows visitors his collection of Japanese engravings and prints displayed on the ground floor. But he keeps his most prized paintings a secret upstairs in his bedroom. There he hides these Renoir paintings, bought at a steep price, 10,000 francs, a fortune at the time, for the Mosque Arab Festival. 6,500 francs for young girl bathing.
He chooses paintings that he wouldn't do himself, like bathers. As a painter, Monet never represented the nude body. He's not looking to confirm his own subject matter. He seeks the perspective of other artists so as to complement his own art.
Monet also buys these Cézanne paintings, like the Negro Scipio. He even raised the bidding price to support the Provençal painter, struggling to gain recognition. But his collection is dispersed after his death in 1926. Monet's only heir, his son, a safari enthusiast. He quickly sold the collection simply because the paintings were worth more than his father's famous water lilies at the time. Now, the collection has been fully reconstituted for the first time.
And that exhibition is on until January at the Marmottan Museum in Paris. Now, he's become famous worldwide for painting his entire body to match the scenery behind. So when he's photographed, it can be near impossible to spot him. The works of the Chinese photographer Liu Bolin are being showcased at the Maison Européenne de la Photographie here in Paris. Alex Jennings reports.
You might struggle to see him at first, but look closely enough and you'll see a figure hiding in these photos. The living sculptor Liu Bolin, a master in the art of camouflage. But what's the use of being an invisible man? And is there any sense in his absence? It all started in 2005, when Bolin's studio was demolished by the Chinese authorities in preparation for the Beijing Olympics. Fading into the background was a way of denouncing the system which frowned upon individuality. Ever since then, the theme of liberty is one that reappears in his works.
To begin with, I chose this method to express my own suffering and to protest against the loss of my workplace. That was honestly the source of my inspiration, the basis behind the creative process.
Through his works, he also denounces society's frantic consumerism and the disastrous consequences it has on the environment. However, that didn't stop him from posing for a big fashion label, a perfume brand, or even a bank. He says or poses anything, as long as the message is true to his beliefs. Here, the preparations for someone who is about to become the pieces of plastic washed up by the ocean. His assistants reproduce the background on his clothes, on his hands, and finally on his face. Liu Bolin will hold this pose for hours. His photos are never retouched, and his disappearing act always has a meaning behind it.
It's like he feels surrounded by the vastness of consumerism, and the fact he's hidden, it's like he's protecting himself from everything that surrounds him.
The environment's taking him over. He disappears into the landscape. It's as if the world is swallowing us, little by little.
What I'm trying to say is that in a developing society, we've got the impression that we're the strongest, that we are masters of everything, but that's wrong. It's nature that dominates everything.
Liu Bolin has never had problems with censoring. In order to stay in China, he avoids any full frontal attack of the regime. Bit by bit, his works have evolved. Today, he's not the only subject of his photos. But Liu Bolin remains consistent in focusing our view and opening our eyes to the world.
And Liu Bolin's exhibition is on at the Maison Européenne de la Photographie in Paris until the 29th of October. For some, it's a large and democratic art movement. For others, it's vandalism. But now street art has an entire museum dedicated to it. Urban Nation in Berlin is the first major institution built to celebrate graffiti as an art form. The opening show has works from more than 100 artists around the world. Olivia Salazar-Winspear checks out street art's new permanent home.
Paste up portraits, aerosol artworks and concrete frescoes. It's quite a surprise to see these pieces under one roof, but it looks like now street art has come in from the cold. Berlin's Urban Nation Museum is a new home for artwork we usually see outside, although here in the German capital, the practice is technically prohibited.
Painting outside is still illegal. Like, it's not really sanctioned. Like, there's areas where you can get away with it, but there's hundreds of people still getting fined and put away in prison today. Therefore, it's still in the same place as it was. It's just that an under movement has come from underneath and it's being respected as an art form.
With 150 artists represented, including Banksy and Leclerc, the collection also extends to forms inspired by the graffiti, collage and murals that have blossomed in city centres around the world. The museum's director says although street art has popped up in galleries over the years, this is a way to institutionalise a permanent collection.
There was a wave around 1980 where big graffiti artists from New York, back then Seine or Donny, were shown in galleries for the first time. But it was a one-time thing. I think this house can be an archive aiming to tell a story for the first time, from the medium's beginnings up until now. That's what we're trying to show here.
And in a nod to the work's more natural habitat, the museum's declared this stretch of its Schöneberg neighbourhood Art Mile, inviting painters and illustrators to work freely on the facade, a true celebration of street art from the inside out.
We're going to leave you with works from one of the greatest photographers of the 20th century, Irving Penn, to celebrate the centenary of his birth. Paris's Grand Palais is hosting the first major retrospective of the American artist's work in France since his death in 2009. Remember our website, we're also on Twitter and Facebook. There's more news coming up on France 24 after this.
You Are Here, your programme spotlighting French heritage.
Versailles, the Louvre and the Mont Saint-Michel are all well-known stars of French heritage. But French genius and France harbours many other hidden treasures. The arts, gastronomy, architecture, as well as nature's wonders. Come along with France 24 and discover France's living heritage. From young apprentices to accomplished craftsmen, farmers to Michelin star sporting chefs. Meet these people whose passion for their professions preserve and drive French heritage.
You Are Here on France 24 and France24.com.
The President of the European Commission struck an upbeat tone during
France 24 is now more than 10 years old. A different TV channel.
The party has also taken the parliament the first time.
3 international news channels broadcast in French, English and Arabic. And starting from 26 September, France 24 will be broadcast in Spanish for 500 million Spanish speakers. A dedicated editorial team and a network of correspondents across the continent. A new view of Latin America for all France 24's channels.